lost feet.
Okay, it's 4 p.m. on Thursday, May 11th, 2017. We have a quorum, so I'll call this New Ulm Public Library Board meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, which we have printed before us. So I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
So move.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any additions or corrections? Chris, you got anything else?
I would like to add under other business at the end, discussing a possible visit from the TDS Executive Director.
Visit from who?
The TDS Executive Director.
Okay. All right, anything else? All right, no other changes then? And all in favor of approving agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll approve the minutes from the April 13th, 2017 Library Board meeting, and at the same time, I'm going to call an audible here, we're going to also approve the minutes from the April 27th, 2017 Library Board special meeting, which was really brief. And both of those, the minutes for both of those are in the packet. So I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from both of those meetings.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, corrections, edits that anybody is aware of? Okay, hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Now we're up to the April 2017 financial reports and summary, and that'll be Chris.
That begins on page 6. We're 33.7% through our year, and our budget is about 29.78% expended. Nothing stands out to me. Expenses are tracking as we expect. We did receive reimbursement from the other 4 Brown County public libraries for the annual overdrive contract. We paid the first half of our TDS member fees. We did receive word from our interior sanitary sewer system check that everything was good, but we haven't received the bill yet, so that payment will be shown in contractual maintenance building. And then I got a new computer, and so that will be reflected this month. It was about $1,100 in computer supplies and equipment. We also are paying our annual Ancestry Library Edition subscription this month, and that will come out of subscriptions and memberships.
Was it your computer a desktop or a laptop?
I have a laptop.
Okay. And you had one before? They just replaced it? Okay.
Yes. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, then we'll move on to the librarian's report with the department activities report and statistics.
Thank you. That begins on page 14. The Library Use Assessment Survey is available online. If you go to the library website, newulmlibrary.org, and scroll to the bottom, there's a link that will get you into that questionnaire. It's also available on paper at the library. We sent 300 random households in New Ulm, 75 in each ward, and the deadline for submission is June 9th. I also sent the link to several area schools. I checked right before I came over. We have received 173 online submissions, about 55 through our random distribution to households in town, and about 30 have been completed and returned to the library in person. So we just ask people to, if they received it at home, please fill that out and get it back to us, or go online and check it out. I've posted it on Facebook once. That generated a lot of interest. I will do that again once or twice before the end of the time. We're over 250 responses. I checked New Ulm Park and Rec's survey, and they had just over 500. So we're about half. We're about half their budget. So 250 was my target. I'm really happy. Anything we get over that, I think, will be a bonus. I'd really like to see a few more of those that were mailed to the random households returned. They're trickling in. We got a couple of big batches.
When did you say the deadline for that was?
June 9th.
June 9th, so you
Yes,
still have.
we do have some
Another
time.
month, yeah.
Yes. The Friends of the Library honored library staff on National Library Workers' Day, April 11th, so we thank the Friends. And most of the staff attended fire extinguisher training at the main fire station,
Now, is that a requirement for the staff to go through that?
only because I said, but not,
Well, then it is a requirement.
but it's not, there's no state requirement.
It's an expectation, I suppose.
Yeah, but I did ask, and all but, I think there may have been 3 people who couldn't go. And I've talked to the fire chief about working them into another time when the fire marshal is at a business and doing the same kind of training, that they would let us know and we could get those other staff people down there.
Do they
It's-
actually get to pull the pin and skirt the,
Well, only the first person gets to pull the pin.
right, yeah.
But
You can
yeah,
simulate it, though.
Yeah, and the great thing is that's a skill that you don't know you need until you need it. So we take advantage of those opportunities when the city makes them available, because you just never know. We
Yeah.
have-
Plus, it's kind of deceiving as to how much force those things put out, and if it's a water one or it's a foam one, and it.
And Trent Zabel did a great job of explaining the different kinds of fire extinguishers that are out there. And we have a lot of fire extinguishers at the library. I attended a workshop titled Minnesota Data Practices for Public Libraries on April 26th at the St. Cloud Library. TDS staff was there as well. I found that very valuable. I attended the TDS Overdrive eBooks Committee meeting with our acquisitions librarian, Betty Roiger, on April 25th in Fairmont. We're talking about how we're collecting Overdrive books. The vast majority of our checkouts are adult fiction ebooks. And so we're shifting how we're collecting it all across the board so that we're not trying to mimic a physical collection. We don't have the funding to mimic a physical book collection. So we're going to try to focus more on the popular titles. And so that will be a lot of adult fiction, multiple copies of some of those bestsellers. We're going to try it for a few months. We're going to see if our circulation statistics change. We've been really, I would say, very stagnant. And I think a part of that has to do with the funding that goes into Overdrive, but I think also it has to do with how we actually collect the materials in
How
that.
many books do we have now?
It's over 8,000.
Okay. And then how many are checked out? Like, do we know those numbers?
Not off the top of my head, but yes, we have statistics
Okay.
that I
I'm sure
can.
you would.
Yes. But I don't know off the top of my
Okay.
head. The vast majority, over 70%, are adult fiction, something
Okay.
like that.
How
But
long do you keep them?
3 weeks.
3 weeks?
But I can put together a lovely PowerPoint on
I was just
Overdrive.
curious if it's stagnant then too, and you're obviously seeing it, it's more of just the fiction or the adult books that are the ones that are being checked out. So it's interesting to see how many are not and what your level is. I don't know if you can see, like, how many people try to check out books. I don't know if that's something that
We
they
can
do
tell
that.
how many have holds on books.
Have holds on book, only if you
Only-
enter in your information then.
I will have to check if we can see what they've clicked on.
Okay.
And just because they've clicked on it doesn't mean they necessarily want to check it out
Right.
either. I'm not sure how they could check if the person's just looking for more information about the book or if they had an intent and then chose not to. I don't know that we can grab that number.
Okay.
But I will put together a PowerPoint next month and you'll learn all about Overdrive.
Sounds good.
Yeah. The library is working with the Brown County Historical Society to discuss U.S. Dakota War commemoration events in August. Network New Ulm met at the library on April 26th, received information about the library and a tour from our Youth Services librarian, Jan Keaveny. Jan also presented a story time at the Arbor Day program, and that's sponsored every year by Park and Rec, and that was April 28th in German Park. And a note, Network New Ulm comes to the library every year as well. We're always happy to see them. The 5 public library directors in Brown County sent a letter to the Brown County Commissioners asking that they contact our state legislators to support increased library funding, also known as regional Library Basic System Support, RLBSS funding. And it doesn't look promising. There's just maybe the smallest glimmer of hope that it's going to be included in E12 funding, but likely not this time around. So then we'll regroup and see what we can do 2 years from now. And then the free tax prep service provided by the United Way of the Brown County area concluded in mid-April. They said they had about 60 additional customers compared with last year, and they want to return next year, and we'd love to have them back. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And just a note on statistics for the month of April, we were down across the board at TDS. If you looked at pretty much every library, and no rhyme or reason. We'd been up 3 months in a row, and I don't know. But we're coming up to our busiest month of the year, June, so we'll see a nice bump next month.
All right, then we'll move on to programming.
That is, all right. So today at 7 p.m. we have the World War I series. That's the Minnesota Home Guard. That series continues through July, and we're working with the Brown County Historical Society, New Ulm Park and Rec, and the Friends of the Library to put that together. We also received a legacy grant to fund portions of that program. Tuesday, May 16th at 6:30 p.m. is the final Minnesota Valley Civil War Roundtable of this season. Lincoln's foreign policy will be presented by Bryce Stenzel. He also portrays Lincoln, so he's a familiar face to many people. Thursday, May 18th at 6 p.m., author Jeffrey Matthews will be at the library to talk about his newly published book, Carry Us All. It is fiction. Tuesday, May 23rd at 6:30 p.m., we'll learn more about Minneopa bison from DNR naturalist Scott Kudelka and Ron Baldwin of the Regional River History Center down in Riverside Park. On Thursday, June 1st, we'll hear from Dr. Peter Mansour talking about the emerging Trump administration national security policy and strategy. So that is Thursday, June 1st at 6 p.m. All of our library programs are at www.newulmlibrary.org.
Alrighty, any questions on programming? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the summer reading program update. And Jan Keaveny is our youth services librarian. Will give us an update on that.
I can hand those out.
Okay. I do have a PowerPoint if you want to use that. I wasn't sure. Can I just put it on this somehow?
You may not
Do I
turn
need
that
a
on.
password or?
Yeah.
Basically, when she says that we're going to have more people in June, I'm expecting a lot of them to be in the children's room. And as you know, it's my first year, so I'm pretty excited, and I hope it goes really well. So I've been in the process this month of going out to the schools and giving little pep talks to the kids. And I've been to the NUACs and one day at Jefferson. I have another day at Jefferson, Washington. I've been to Emmanuel Lutheran. I'm planning to go to St. Paul's. So I think I've contacted most of the schools here. Do you need my password?
Oh, because I have the wrong username.
There we go. Thank you.
Green is children's.
Children's, yep.
And yellow is teens.
And then do you guys see this somewhere already?
Once you're ready, I'll have them.
Okay.
I'll put it up here.
You can pop it up. Great. So, good. Build a better world, and I have a little song I sing with the check it out theme that the kids do, and basically reminding them all the various things that they can check out. And I tell them how to get a library card, and then go into our Sorry, thanks. Our registration is starting on June 5th, and that day we have some balloon creations coming in the afternoon, and that's the day that they can sign up for the various classes. They're going to get the calendar that you see in front of them, and those calendars have all the events on them and the times of the events, and they also serve as the way that the students will mark off the days that they read. So they're pretty detailed. As you can see, there's a teen one and a child one. Many of the events are the same, but the ones that are different are, there's a few more things for the teens, like archery. And the registration card looks like what you see on the screen, just pretty basic: name, age, phone number so we can get a hold of them. The city made us a gigantic map that we're going to put up on our bulletin board and have push pins in it for all the kids that are part of the program. And last year I think there were 800, so I think it should be pretty cool, impressive. A lot of businesses have been generous in giving us coupons, so the first one they're going to get is from Perkins for a free meal if an adult eats. And then we're encouraging the kids to start checking out. We have the Everett Smithson Band that's coming, and I think they're going to be great from what I heard. I hope we get a lot of adults that come too. And afterward, they're giving all the kids harmonicas and a short harmonica lesson, so that should be a kick. This year for prizes, they're going to get a necklace like this, and they'll get a pony bead for each day that they read. So by the end of the summer, their necklace can be full and beautiful. Story time is twice a week. We're changing the Thursday time to the afternoon because it used to be at the same time as one of the puppet wagon shows in town. So just to not have that double, we're changing that. We're hoping to get a group of kids that will Skype with people from around the world. And we have a connection who knows people all over and is helping us set that up so that the kids can Skype with people in each of the continents except for Antarctica. We're going to, on the Build a Better World theme, each week we're going to go to a different continent, and that's what my story times will focus on, and the crafts and everything will be from that continent. We're running a little overdrive class. Once again, the kids will get some prizes as they keep reading. We have Ed Fornberg, who used to teach art in the public school. He's coming to do a drawing class. As I said, the crafts are going to be kind of related to the different themes of which continent it is. We have Peter Bladel coming, and I haven't seen him, but I hear he's just great. As I was telling kids, the ones that had seen him said, "Oh, he's really good." So again, free and open to everyone, all ages, and that's going to be at the community center. We have a Making Pop-Up Books class from the Center for Book Arts, painting classes. Again, this is what I'm using when I go out with the kids, so I'm not going through everyone with you. Fish prints and What Fish Live in the River, that's with Scott Kudelka. On 2 days, we have just demonstrations. One day, a lady's going to make shoes up in the children's room, and people can just come and watch her. And another day, someone's going to do a spinning wheel up there. We have a geocaching class. There's the spinning wheel. After the kids read 4 weeks, 5 books a week, or 5 days a week for 4 weeks, then they'll get a free book. And we're specifically thanking the local 3M employees because it was their donation that made that possible this year. And we have Makerspace, and this is what we hope their necklaces will look like near the end. Our final event is we've rented the Vogel Center for 2 hours on July 31st for open swim and gym. And I'm only worried that we're going to have more people wanting to come than they can fit in their doors. That would be a great problem to have. So thanks to the existing staff and Carla, got direction on how to kind of get this set up. I feel like we have a lot of fun events ahead of us, and now we're just preparing for the, barrage of kids. So it's been really fun for me to be working up there. I when people say, "What's it like?" I say, "Well, everyone who walks in the door wants to be there, and they all leave with free stuff. How can you beat that?" So it's just been delightful. Any questions on programming, or does it look like something usable? Does?
Sounds like you're going to be busy and having lots of fun.
I hope so. So come on up and join us. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Jan.
Yep.
Now we'll move on to the Assistant Library Director update. Chris?
April Idy is planning to begin work on Monday, May 15th at 8:30 in the morning. We're looking forward to having her hit the ground running.
Great. And then now we'll move on to the building updates.
As I previously mentioned, the interior sanitary sewer system was just checked. It was status quo, so it's not perfect, but no big changes. Elwood Zabel, our building official, recommended that we just continue to monitor it. So I'd like to go 6 to 12 months again before we do the same thing that we did this time, which was a camera through it. There's one bigger belly close to the water fountain in the meeting room, if you want to check out that neck of the woods, but it's not changed. So we'll just keep an eye on it, and I'll keep you posted. Our landscaping committee, which includes looking at the sign for the outside Broadway Street entrance, the committee is meeting Monday afternoon with the Wandagog Sculpture Committee. The whole sculpture committee is meeting, and then a subgroup is meeting with us regarding the landscaping. That's going to be 2:00 for the landscape, or 2:00 for the sculpture, 3:30 for the landscaping and signage. Our carpeting is really getting worn in the main building. I plan to ask a local vendor to come in and just give us some suggestions about how we could perhaps look at replacement over a few years' time. The worst part are the stairs. Those seem to me to be the priority, but I'd like to get some ideas. I know next to nothing about carpet. And then the elevator in our main building is going to be replaced. That is being paid for through city building funds. It is running over what they're expecting, what they had expected, or what they had budgeted. However, I did verify that it's still coming out of that city building fund, that the library is not being asked to make up any cost difference. What it entails is replacing belts and gadgets to make it up, so bring it up to current code, and so that we can get replacement parts. You can't get replacement parts for this anymore. Now, the car itself, Elwood and I have talked, we're not planning to replace it because that's not part of the bid, and that is something that the library board would have to add on to from our budget. So I've told him that let's just go with what we need to do at this point, and perhaps down the road we could replace the car. Now, it's going to be possible to replace the car with new belts. There won't be any problem with swapping out a car if we decide to do that down the road. We have a very functional car. I think we can continue to function with it.
Do they have to take the car out to do all the other replacements that they need to do?
I don't know. I do know that the elevator is going to be unusable for an extended period of time, but I don't know the mechanics of how they get everything replaced.
You know when the work will occur?
No, and Elwood doesn't either. They're still working on the finance part of it, and they've talked to a couple of vendors about it. I don't think they've selected a vendor yet.
So does the city itself have a elevator contractor that does PMs and their services for all the elevators around town in the public buildings?
Right. Minnesota Elevator.
Yep. Okay.
Right. They come every month to look at that particular elevator because it's so old now, and we have another elevator that's newer, and they actually look at that quarterly.
Okay. So, Minnesota Elevator is going to be one of the ones that they look at for bidding and stuff, or?
I'm sorry, I don't know who Elwood's been working with.
Okay. But since it's not in our budget, we really don't need to worry too much about it, right?
One question was that the group that decided that it should be replaced when they come out and check it?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay,
I don't know who made the decision that.
I was just curious.
Yeah. Do you want me to have Elwood come in and talk about the elevator next
That'd
month?
probably be a good idea.
Okay.
It wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
All right, I will ask him to come in.
Chris, will the other elevator be accessible for folks who need to get up to the other levels of the building?
The other elevator does not go to fiction, adult fiction, and it does not go upstairs to the Fred W. Johnson room area and nonfiction. So no, there will be no access to those. Staff will have to get materials. We'll move all programs down to the meeting room or the main level or children's. It will be an inconvenience.
Carl, I think they should just get a crane for you and I, and then they can just hoist us up and down.
Well, this time of year, we could have stuff outside.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Now we'll move on to the budget for 2018 and the discussion thereof. It's on page 21. Correct.
Starts on page 21. The board had indicated that you would like to talk about this sooner than previous years. I haven't received any paperwork from the finance office, but that will be coming at the beginning of June. So what you have before you is what I know to this point and what has happened historically.
So on page 21, basically, you bulletized a bunch of the items that you thought are of some importance.
Yes, that's correct. I highlighted some of the things that I consider every year when I start working on the budget.
Okay.
I did mention a bullet point and put in a couple of articles regarding eliminating library fines, and I was at the TDS directors meeting today, and the Winnebago director, Muir Library, said she just went fine-free at the beginning of May.
Who was that?
Muir Library in Winnebago.
Okay.
St. Peter and North Mankato also are fine-free. And as I've noted, I'm not recommending that necessarily, because in my discussion with the city managers, we don't get that revenue back
Right.
any other way.
Yep.
But it's, I think, perhaps something to consider. What is the benefit to us? Is it cost efficient to be sending out notices? Then we have the whole public perception. Something for you to consider.
Yeah, I mean, the articles that you did enclose in there do give both sides of the, pretty good examples of arguments for both sides.
And the one article was from 2008 that had the pro and con, but I included it because those arguments remain relevant.
Yeah.
And it was stated really well. It's what I still hear.
To go along with that, about how many books are lost, let's say, a year because they're not returned?
We don't keep track.
You don't keep track, but there are some.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I had seen, I had heard on public radio a panel group of librarians from across the country several months ago. And one of the items they discussed was this very issue of fines in the libraries, public libraries. And I was swayed by their discussion to come down on the side of abandoning fines for several reasons, not the least of which is philosophic reason of what does a public and free access to the library really mean, and do we want to continue to place staff in situations where they have the potential for some adversarial confrontations with patrons and what that does to that whole relationship of the library to our patrons. And maybe there's some things that we can do down the road that would maybe alleviate the fines in general for late books. Maybe there might be some media that we want to retain, some penalty structure for if we're not returning it, or maybe just go strictly to a replacement cost if the material is not returned. But I think some of those arguments that they make for going fine-free are pretty strong, and I think that at some point we might want to consider further discussions, review of that issue.
My response to that would be kind of a question. If I don't return a book, and let's say it's a year later, and I all of a sudden walk back in the library, are you going to remember? Is that going to be flagged on my card then?
It
Okay.
is.
What would then happen? Would I be allowed to take another book out or not?
You bring the item back with you?
No.
Oh, typically what happens is we remind the patron, and I will check something out to them. Oftentimes they'll say, oh yes, I forgot. I know where that is. Depends on the situation.
Okay, what happens, no, a year later, you're just happy to get the book back.
Right.
Yeah.
But it will drop instead of the replacement cost, they'll have a fine of $3 if they bring it back.
All right.
I know you read about the stories, where library books were returned, decades later, and
Yep.
they've been accruing fines all that time, and it's worth way more than what the book is worth. And it seems unreasonable. A lot of times they waive it, but it's just
We have only a maximum of $3
yeah,
in
it's
fines.
not going to break the bank.
But then we do charge a replacement cost that will
Right.
go away if the item comes back in good
Right.
condition.
Yeah, but if they truly lost it,
If they truly lost it, then it's the replacement cost, and we do charge a $5 processing fee. We really try to work with patrons, and we do, I think. We try to work with the situations that happen in life. So I think we do our best to provide good customer service and work with each person based on their circumstances.
I think we should just have each patron turn over some collateral of equal value that will be returned to them when.
The amount of the fine really is a limited incentive to bring the book back. If they're going to bring it back at some point, because they don't want to pay for a replacement.
Mm-hmm.
Fine.
That to me is more of an incentive than a
Right.
$3 maximum fine. I mean, that's really
We're
no
still a
incentive.
nickel a day, aren't we?
It's a dime a
Dime.
day.
Is it a
and
dime a day?
And it's $1 for movies.
All right.
But I did notice in the article you had mentioned that it would only be for books that we would possibly waive the fines. You talked about DVDs and
Different libraries, they all have all kinds of structures. Some of them retain it with their audiovisual material. Some of them have completely waived it. That would be your decision.
But again, the argument would also go to, the relationship with the clients and the customers, but also then the revenue stream that would be lost that would, and for ours, I think you had written in there, it's, what do we have, $9,000 in fines in 2016. I mean, that's a pretty good chunk of change. So to try and replace that revenue stream in other ways could be challenging with the budget crunches that are going on every year anyhow.
And as noted, a couple of bullet points above, TDS is proposing that our New Ulm's fees are increasing by $1,600 next
Right.
year.
Yeah. So,
Have you ever, since you've been here, have you ever had a confrontation with anybody over anything like this?
I've had some uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
but it's something we can bring up at, in the future as we contemplate this issue. But are there any other discussion items concerning the upcoming budget?
I'll add to the $9,000 interesting discussion. Numbers, $9,000, how many patrons is that? You know, is it a cluster of 200 people who are paying this fee?
Yeah, is it the 80-20 rule kind
Right.
of thing?
Is it one of those scenarios, or is it really spread across the board? Because I know that I, with my children, have a tendency to get that 10 cents fine. And I find it to be, personally, a reminder that I am at a public library and I can't, it's not just me, it's everybody's books, and I need to be responsible and give them back, too. But it'd be interesting to see the numbers on that to find out how many people are putting into that pot. Because I don't mind giving the 20 cents every once in a while, because it was my own fault for not following the rules.
How many people accounted for that $9,000?
Yeah. How many patrons?
I can probably get you an estimate.
Yeah, that would just be interesting to see again, because we have how many people who have library cards? Is it 14?
How many people have library
Library
cards?
cards?
6,300.
6,300. So it'd be interesting to see out of that 6,300 how many are actually paying out the chunk of change.
Yeah, we don't need names and addresses.
No.
Just a number.
We can start following up and knocking on their door.
Exactly, yeah. The board
No.
will, that's part of the board's responsibility, just to find overdue books and,
Chris, when we're talking about $9,000, is that simply the time fine, or does that include the replacement books?
That is just the time, the overdue
Okay.
materials. We have a separate line. I'm going to refer to page 7 of your packet. At the top of the page, you see revenues, and halfway down is library fines. Right below that is lost and damaged item fees. So that's a separate line.
all right, are there any other issues with the upcoming budget that, either that's been highlighted here on page 21 or in looking through the proposed budget for, well, preliminary, I guess, preliminary budget?
I guess from my perspective, I don't need any direction at this point, but I will need direction at the next meeting. What I can do is kind of give you some preliminary numbers of what I'm thinking. But I would just ask you to also think about it over the next month. And if there's something you feel very strongly about, to provide that direction at the next meeting, because it needs to be finalized at the July meeting.
Before we move on, Mr. Chair, Chris, could you talk just a couple minutes about the wage adjustment that the city authorized for all city staff that I believe we had talked about it when the council passed the adjustments. That's the money that was going to pay for that larger increase was going to come from some carryover dollars, and that we would really see the impact on the budget in 2018. At least that's the way I kind of recall that conversation. Is that indeed going to be the case? Are we going to see some higher adjustments to the budget for personnel costs?
And Carl, I can't speak to that at this meeting because our finance director hasn't provided me with any documentation yet.
Okay.
But she will, before the next meeting. She sends it out to all the department heads. And I can ask her to give me some kind of ballpark about how that's going to affect our personal services. Now, what she did tell me at some point was that the taxes would be adjusted for that increase in personal services, in our wages and benefits. That we can, what I took away was that essentially the library can continue on a status quo. And if we have a request, that we can make that request, and the library board can make the request to the city council to determine whether, yes, indeed, we do want to give the library extra or additional funds for a particular line item. That we don't necessarily have to think about the effect of the wages on those other lines that we actually do have control over.
Okay.
But I will get more information for the June meeting because, as I said, that's when the initial paperwork will be out from the finance department.
Okay.
Anything else on the budget then, before we move on? All right, and we'll get into the next section, which are the action items and the resolutions. And the first one starts on page 35, and it's resolution number 2017-15, first reading and adoption, accepting Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund Legacy Grant for programs. The library was awarded an Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund Legacy grant in the amount of $1,938 for Peter Bledel's Perpetual Vaudeville Show, which will be presented in Comfrey, Sleepy Eye, Hanska, and New Ulm in June of 2017. The Friends of the Library will be the fiscal agent for the grant. So, is there any further information that you have, Chris, on this? So then I will entertain a motion that we accept the Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund grant for the program of $1,938 for Peter Bledel's Perpetual Vaudeville Show.
So move.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. The next resolution is number 2017-16, first reading and adoption for approving $1,000 expenditure of the Lions Club donation for large print books. The library requests $1,000 out of Fund 212, donations and memorials, for the purchase of large print books. These funds were donated in April 2017 by the Lions Club of New Ulm toward large print book purchases. These purchases will contain book plates identifying the donor. It is expected that these funds will be expended by December 2017. Note, in 2010, the New Ulm Public Library Board approved Resolution number 2010-10, approving expenditures of donations received as designated or memorial, which states as follows. For all individual donations $500 or more, the library director will request authority within 90 days from the library board to expend those funds for the designated or memorial purposes identified by the donor. So I will entertain a motion to approve the $1,000 expenditure of the Lions Club donation for large print books.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, do we have a motion and a second? Any further discussion on this? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, the third one's a little more lengthier. It's resolution number 2017-17, first reading and adoption, authorizing the city attorney to prepare extension of building sharing agreement with New Ulm Community Access Television, or NewCat. On June 12, 2008, the New Ulm Public Library Board adopted a proposal for redesign and use of library basement storage area as a community cable access office, or CCAO. The agreement was for a term of 3 years, with an additional 3 years at the option of the New Ulm Community Access Television, or NewCat. Further extensions must be approved by the New Ulm Public Library Board. NewCat has continued to rent space in the library under the fee structure established in 2008, and it is billed annually by the library director. The annual fee is $3,000 for office space and $506.25 for storage and server space at $6.25 per square foot. In addition, NewCat pays 1.7% of the library's annual budgeted amount for utilities. The library and NewCat had developed a long-standing and positive relationship that is mutually beneficial as well as valuable to the public. Therefore, the library director and NewCat coordinator recommend that the library board authorize the city attorney to prepare an extension of the building sharing agreement at the current rate for rent and utilities. We recommend that the sharing agreement continue thereafter until terminated by either party, and either party may terminate the agreement with a 60-day written notice to the other. And on pages 38 and 39, it shows the original proposal for the redesign of the library basement storage area. I don't know if we need to, if you want me to read through this or not.
Waive the reading.
Okay, we'll waive the reading on that. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to read through it. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. We have also here in the audience is Steve from NewCat, if we have any questions that we want to ask of them. All right, it seems like there's none. It's pretty straightforward.
Only thing I'll mention, I saw a sign for New Cat all the way up in Candioi County. And I had to stop my car when I was driving by because I saw it there.
And it was our symbol, or
It
just
said New Cat on it. The sign just said NU Cat.
It might be just another
Okay,
organization that has a similar.
because there was no symbol on it, but I
You don't
mean,
have a, you don't have a trademark on the,
I don't think so. No.
I mean, I'm going about 60 miles an hour and I kind of slammed on the brakes.
Maybe we have fans out there. So
Okay,
kind of like Wall Drug has billboards all over the place.
20 mile an hour.
I don't know, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Carl.
I was gonna say, I don't know that Steve would know, but maybe you might, Chris. Do you know how the original fee schedule was established? I mean, what were the guidelines to say 3,000 rather than 5,000? And has that changed since 2008? Has that been a set fee? And if we put this agreement into perpetuity, do we have any ability at any time to adjust the rate? It doesn't sound like if we do that, we have any ability to adjust the rate if we would want to do that.
You do, don't you, in that you can cancel the agreement within 60 months, or 60 days, and then at that point you could,
restrike a new agreement.
yeah.
Now, I'm not so great at math, Carl, but the office space, the original office space, was 480 square feet. If you multiply that by $6.25 times 625, that's where you get the $3,000. Then over time, NewCat has added some additional storage space and has been billed at $6.25 per square foot. Now, they haven't migrated a lot because the library doesn't have a lot of space to offer to them. But most recently, it's probably been 2 years ago when Mark Martinez asked if they could move their server out of the office and into the library server room. And so I agreed to that. And so then we added the amount of actual space that's taken up by their server. It did necessitate us having to get an air conditioning unit, and NewCat paid for the air conditioning unit and the library paid for the installation of that. So did that answer one part of the question?
The original.
The original. You're right. And the library board, another thought is to do it on an annual basis because we haven't changed the rent in all this time. But to do so, if you put it on your annual fee schedule, we could look at that annually. You look at every other fee that we charge patrons. We could add it to an annual fee schedule. Is that something that would be agreeable to you, Stephen?
I would say so, yeah.
We could look at the rent then, which is August every year.
Mm-hmm.
That would provide us the option if we ever did want to.
Correct.
It's not that I see that as a big change coming, but Carl's right, we ought to leave ourselves some avenue of,
Because the utilities portion, the 1.7% with the annual budgeted amount for utilities, that's on a rising scale. As the library's utilities go up, so does
So
the
there's
New Cat's share of that. But you're right, the rent has been pretty stable for a while, and that reviewing it annually would provide us that opportunity to, increase it if we so needed to or wanted to.
It might be, a way to, if we ever do decide to move on the fine issue, a means by which we could offset
Yeah, $9,000.
some of that. That cost.
Stephen, you have something to say about that?
But, and then I was also going to ask, with respect to the 1.72% of the utilities cost, when we repaired the sewer or did the lighting projects, I don't imagine they were assessed any part of those utility repairs.
They were not.
Okay.
But neither was the Minnesota Music Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And they would not benefit from the sewer system, but from the lights, definitely.
Okay.
Did New Cat come around at that point in 2008 and request to rent the space, then I take it?
I believe, according to the documentation I have, this was before my time, so I was looking at the documentation that the Cable Communications Advisory Board
Okay.
created, or had this proposal created and presented it to the library board.
They were essentially looking for space in a
Right.
building already owned by the city.
Any other discussion or questions for Steve?
I would just like to reiterate, in the reading that you mentioned, it's a mutually beneficial department between the departments. I think that it has been, for me, I've been here since 2013, and I found that a lot of our programming that we air on New Cat is originally put together by the library and presented there. So I think being there gives us that opportunity to collaborate on a lot of projects and benefits the citizens of New Ulm. So.
And Chris had mentioned to me before the meeting started about the installation of some speakers.
We received a donation of a sound system from the public schools, and Mark Martinez installed that for us at no charge. So it is mutually
Yeah.
beneficial to have that kind of expertise. I can't count the number of times that New Cat staff has been helpful with tech questions,
Yeah.
not only to library staff, but to patrons and renters of the meeting space.
All right, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna suggest that they align, indicating the term of the agreement be changed so that it says that we recommend that the sharing agreement continue for a period of 1 year and be reviewed annually. And either party may terminate the agreement with a 60-day written notice to the other. Does that seem satisfactory to?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, well, based on that change then, I will entertain a motion to authorize the city attorney to prepare an extension agreement of building sharing, prepare an extension of the building sharing agreement with New Ulm Community Access Television.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second?
A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I would like to have a clarification that we review it annually in August.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so we'll add that to be reviewed annually in August.
And note that Stephen and I have talked that this would go to the Cable Communications Advisory Board before it'd go to the city attorney.
Oh,
You're
yeah,
our
sure.
first stop.
That's correct. There was a line there that I didn't read that it says, if approved by the library board, the library director and New Cat coordinator will present this proposal to the Cable Advisory Board at its next meeting, which is going to occur on July 20th, 2017.
So you won't see anything until August.
All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none, then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, thanks, Steve. And now the final item on the agenda for today, well, not final item, final resolution on the agenda today
Gonna
is
say.
number 2017-18, first reading and adoption, which is authorizing the city manager to sign services agreement with Mankato Area Adult Basic Education. Based on direction provided by the New Ulm Public Library Board, the city attorney has prepared the attached agreement between New Ulm Public Library and Mankato Area Adult Basic Education, or ABE. ABE staff has agreed in writing to this agreement as it presented and is prepared to sign following the board's approval. And then pages 42 and 43 have the agreement. I'll waive the reading if no one has any issues with that. I read through it, it's pretty straightforward. The only question I had is item number 4. It says NDL classes. What's NDL stand for?
North Star Digital Literacy. Those are the basic computer classes.
Okay.
Yep. And up above in the recitals, it's, he says North Star Digital Literacy.
Is that right?
Under recitals, letter B.
Oh, yeah, there it is. All right. He didn't put it in
He didn't put it in
parentheses behind it, so
parentheses,
I missed that. Thanks.
I'll make a motion, we approve the agreement, waive the reading.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to authorize the city manager to sign services agreement with the Mankato Area Adult Basic Education. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. So we're through with the resolutions now, and we'll move on to other business. And Chris, you had mentioned you wanted to talk about the visit from the TDS Executive Director.
Thank you. Ann Hokinson is the TDS Executive Director, has been there since January. Would be happy to visit if you would like to meet her and have her talk a little bit about TDS and the services they're providing and the work that she's doing specifically. I invite her if you want. I could check her calendar, maybe the July meeting, the August meeting. I guess it would depend on her schedule as well. Do you have a preference?
For the July meeting, is that the one we handle the budget?
That's the budget.
So that might be a
Not
big-
that one then?
big
Maybe
time.
August?
Yeah, it might be a big time constraint on that one. So
Okay.
yeah, let's look at August.
Okay. All right.
All right.
And as Dave said, he met one of the TDS staffers who invited him to visit TDS. You're all welcome.
Yep.
If you're interested, if you want me to go with you, I'd be happy to go. I'd be happy to connect you with TDS staff so you could see what they do.
All right. Is that it? Any other business? All right. Hearing none, then the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.